Beautiful animals.
Hey Brian, let's go fishing. Enough talking for now. You know, this really doesn't look like steelhead weather out here today, but here it is summertime, and we're going to take a little look at equipment, and we're kind of laying things out and getting ourselves prepared for the coming season. And you know, Brian, one of the really nice things about this style of fishing is that you really don't need a whole lot of specialized equipment for it.
No, that's true. Really, a lot of the standard type trout gear that you have already will work for this type of steelhead fishing. One of the most often asked questions that we get is what's the best rod for this type of fishing? Your standard 9-foot trout type rod will work, but I think we both agree that the rod needs to be at least 9 to 10 foot, and I know Jerry and I both recommend a 10-foot rod for this type of fishing.
You know, there's really two reasons that I really prefer the longer rod. The first of which is just line control. The longer rod just allows you so much more versatility as far as controlling the line on the water, mending it, working your tuck cast, and doing different things. It just really makes that whole process a lot more efficient. And the longer length rod really helps when you're fighting the fish, I think. You know, the longer rods typically have a fairly flexible tip section to them, and you just get that shock absorber type work from the tip section. Allows you to really handle these large fish on the smaller flies and light tip it when we have to do it. I prefer a 6-weight. It's kind of like an all-around rod for the steelhead fishing in the Great Lakes. It's very versatile. You can throw streamers with them if you have to. You can do the dead drift. So it's really my favorite, and I know you have a favorite of your own too.
Yeah, I've had a rod custom made for us at the shop that's actually a 5-weight. It's a 10-foot 5-weight that really kind of has almost an 8-weight butt section with a 5-weight tip to it. Therefore, I've got the sensitivity in the tip to protect the light tippets. I have a much higher landing rate because of that, but I've got the strength in the butt section to make the cast and to fight the fish. But on this rod, I've got the full Wells grip put on it, as well as a fighting butt and heavier duty reel seat. You don't find those on 5-weights very often. But really, for this type of fishing, somewhere between a 5-weight and an 8-weight is going to be most appropriate, and I think that has most to do with the water that you're fishing. In our Erie tributaries that we fish locally, we're fairly small, trout-sized water, therefore this 5-weight and that 6-weight works well. If you're going to go to Michigan or on the West Coast, you know, maybe a 10-foot 8-weight on that bigger, deeper, faster water where you really need that butt to work against the currents and the speed of the water to help you fight the fish.
And one thing to keep in mind too, if you want to get a custom built rod for this, it's great, and you can really get something set up exactly the way that you want it. But most of the rod companies do manufacture longer length rods in the proper line weights for this type of fishing.
These 10-foot rods are really just such a pleasure. Gives us so much of a shock absorber. Really gives to the fish and protects these light tippets. But I've also got a fair amount of leverage.